the archangel.
Yeah.
But it's just about, like, being holy and stuff. So, like, as far as I know, and I'm not an expert in any way whatsoever, but as far as I know, with, like, my Catholic family and friends, they're very separate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
And this is a Catholic church, also, like, worth noting in the episode.
Okay.
So I guess that tracks. But yeah, I know we've talked about, Meredith, like, some of your church's beliefs versus, like, what's in Supernatural. And I do remember that being a thing that you had told me, like, was, like, people and then angels are, like, the same kind of, like, thing.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just so many different Christian denominations that me and my perspective can't hope to cover them all, because I have one perspective based on one Christian denomination.
Yeah, but yeah, I think there are, like, definitely, like, other Christian denominations that are, like, yeah, no, like, angels are angels and people are people. But it's interesting. I think this episode actually did a great job of tackling religion in, like, a really good way, and I don't know, we'll probably talk about it even more as we go through the end segments, but I do kind of want to start going through the end segments, if that's okay with everybody. Let's start with death count. This week we saw 2 deaths, bring our on-screen total to 177, and then the off-screen total for this episode was a lot more than 2.
Yeah. Yep.
Father Gregory, the 3 people that he got killed, the 3, like, people that got stabbed in the heart, plus the bad dude from the car, so I think that's 5. So the on and off-screen total for the show is 1,287 plus.
Wait, what about the victims of that one guy in his basement?
Oh, shoot, I forgot
3
about
total,
them.
right?
I forgot about them, so that's 3 more, so that's 8. Hang on, I have to do math now.
That's okay.
Live math. Thank you for remembering those 3 people that I was so indignant that their families had no closure. That's 1,290.
Did you get the person we dug up?
I think they were included in the 3.
That was one of the 3,
That was one of the 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
never
One of
mind.
them
So there was
disappeared at
2
the library,
more.
and then there were 2.
Yeah.
Okay. I was having trouble keeping track of these people.
I forgot all 3 of them, so... So that's, 1,290 plus.
Nice. Wow. Okay, that's a lot.
I mean, it's only gonna go up. There's no going down.
Nope.
We also tried to assign MVP of the week. So let's see who everybody would like to nominate as this week's most valuable person. And let's start with Meredith.
Ooh, no pressure. I'm gonna go with Father Reynolds. I feel like he had this very difficult task of talking to the spirit of someone he worked with and liked spending time with and telling him, like, no, I'm so sorry, but you're not an angel, you're dead.
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
Yeah. But he did it so well, and I just liked him.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Jen, who would you like to nominate?
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna go with Sam. Sam had a rough go of it in this episode, I think. But I did appreciate, especially in the beginning, where Dean was, I think, kind of even doubting there being much of a case there at all. Sam was determined to get to the truth.
He really wanted to be on Team No Case.
Yeah. And, and I think Sam was, I think he had faith until the very end where it was revealed, but I think it could have been possible that at maybe some points he was doubting, but he was still willing to, I think, press forward, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
There's value in that.
Yeah. And Vail, how about you?
I would have to nominate Sam, just because, like, okay, obviously he was the one pushing to continue looking into the whole case. I would also like to imagine that, hiding out in other motels, and Sam's just like, I've got this case. 2 people have been stabbing other people, and they're both on a mission by God, and Dean's just like, what the hell is going on here? But yeah, so he, like, drove the whole thing, had a lot of character progression. Dean also kind of had a realization, but it wasn't as, like, prominent for him as it was for Sam. And I feel like Sam still kind of got that closure because it's still left very open.
Yeah.
And Dean kind of confirms some of it at the end.
I like that nobody else said Dean. But I said Dean. I wanted to give it to Sam because I think that, like, Sam, like, it was Sam's emotional journey this week. Like, I think Sam's emotional journey was the one that we were going on. But Dean was right about it being a vengeful spirit pretty much from, like, 2 minutes in. And then he also kept Sam from doing a really bad thing.
Yes.
Like, Sam would have killed that guy with his bare hands. And we need Sam to not do any bad things because he's fated to become evil.
Yeah.
So we need to
He
keep...
would probably have used a knife, like everyone else.
Or a gun. Like, it's not like he doesn't have them.
But we needed Sam not to kill anybody, and Dean accomplished that, and he was also correct about it being a vengeful spirit, so I gave it to Dean for those reasons. It's, in terms of like who we were emotionally supposed to be like concentrated on this week, I think it was more Sam. Let's talk about the Bechdel test. Did we have 2 named women in this episode?
I think we just had one.
We just had Gloria. She was the only woman in this episode, and Dean called her a hooker twice.
Oh,
so that's
God,
a no.
Dean.
That's an automatic no.
Poor Gloria.
That is a negative.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I hope Gloria lives a pretty good life. I think she's in jail, but
We should have to take away one of the previous passing episodes. This week's case of the week was Vengeful Spirit, but dealt heavily with angels. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this episode that I don't know if we want to talk about here.
I don't really have anything supernatural, but I thought it was kind of funny that there's another X-Files similarity.
Yeah.
Because on the X-Files, Mulder is the one who's not religious, and Scully is the one who is religious.
And Scully is the believer, right?
Mulder is the believer.
Mulder's
He's the one that
believer.
wants
Dang it.
aliens. And
I just made you just, like, the episode that's coming out at midnight tonight in, like, 7 hours, you just explained that to me.
That's fair.
And I already forgot. I was editing it, like, 2 hours ago.
Eventually I'll get you to watch the show, and you can appreciate Scully as much as I do.
I'll keep it straight in my brain.
I appreciate Scully. I haven't watched a lot of the X-Files, but whenever, like, John Sheevan's, like, the writer for Supernatural, I'm like, he was on the X-Files. He was on the
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what this one's gonna be.
Scully was a trailblazer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just for women in fiction, just in general.
But yeah, there was a lot of angel talk in this episode, but I think we're going to save most of our angel stuff for when we get to angels for real. But I suggested to Meredith that maybe she do some seance stuff. So Meredith, I don't know if you have some of that.
I do. I managed to remember a lot of stuff I had to do research on for a project recently. But
Yay.
Anyway, we're doing seances because that's what Sam did in the church. Anyway, a seance is a gathering in which the living try to contact the dead. Usually you'll have a group of people sitting at a table with a person called a medium. The medium is like the leader, the one who officially calls the spirits and acts as a conduit for communication. The word seance comes from the French word for session, and the concept of the seance is very old. I'm not sure exactly how old, but I do know that some of the figures in the Iliad and the Odyssey speak to ghosts. They don't summon them, but still, as long as a culture has a concept of life after death, someone's going to wonder if we can speak with the dead. I do know that calling upon spirits has been referenced in the Bible, so it's old. Anyway, that's the point. Seances became a popular form of entertainment in the Victorian era with the rise of the spiritualist movement, which I also spoke about during our episode for No Exit. I specifically discussed ectoplasm and the showmanship involved in these seances, because a lot of them were less about genuinely communicating with the dead and more about putting on a big show, and the special effects involved were really interesting. Mediums would pretend to be possessed. They'd have people behind the scenes tapping the walls or activating a mechanism that would tap the underside of the table. There would be actors pretending to be ghosts in front of large audiences. They'd figure out lighting and placement of the furniture in order to put on a good show, and it's a really fascinating period to study and has given rise to most of our ghost tropes nowadays. And that's why we might look back on it and think that everyone in the 19th century was gullible or stupid. It's worth noting that we think that because we're used to this stuff. We know what to expect with a seance, even if we've never participated in one or done any serious study. But the people in the 19th century didn't have this stuff as firmly ingrained in their culture, so this was all new to them. Also, there were tons of skeptics, and they're equally fascinating to study, but I digress. So I just want to touch on one last thing. In this episode, Father Reynolds is kind of mad when Sam has a seance in the church, and I just want to take a quick look at where he's coming from.
Because I didn't know where he was coming from, and I had to ask Meredith.
Just very quick. Alright, so Jewish people and Christians are taught not to summon or control any spirits, which comes from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verses 9 to 12. If you want to look that up on your own time, you can, because I'm not reading the whole thing. But basically, we're told not to use divination, consult with familiar spirits, in this context, it's just evil spirits or demons, or perform any sort of witchcraft or necromancy or anything like that, because God sees it as an abomination. So it's not that communicating with dead people is the issue. We get messages from our ancestors through dreams and revelation all the time. It's the act of deliberately summoning spirits using rituals that God has deemed abominations. So
that would explain why he was mad that they were doing it and that they were doing it in a church.
yeah. Also, sorry, Sam, it doesn't help that you're using a seance that's based on early Christian rites. It's still not allowed.
I mean, also the SpongeBob placemat is really just not setting the vibe.
Come on, guys. So, in conclusion, seances are really fascinating, and doing them in a Christian church is a no-no.
And that would probably be related to how, like, especially in video games and stuff, necromancy is usually the evil stuff, right? Or the evil wizard.
Yep. I think that goes to a lot of cultures, because, like, we want to talk to the dead, Jeffrey. We don't want you to dig them up. Gosh, put those bones back where they came from, or so help me.
Highlight and lowlight, that's where we are. That's what we do next. Let's start with Jenn.
I don't know what, like, I like the whole episode. I feel like there were not, like, a lot of moments that stood out to me as, like, big wins and the epic highs and lows of high school football and whatnot.
Gosh.
I'm like, wait, hold on. Reference incoming. Anyway.
I haven't even seen Riverdale, but that quote is just ingrained in my psyche.
It's hard to escape
I haven't
from.
seen Riverdale, but that is that, and then, like, the hat, like, the I'm weird.
I watch Riverdale every week to relieve the part of my soul that needs to just
Insane.
be bowled over by by TV,
Insane.
like, insanity.
We'll talk about Riverdale in a moment.
Yeah,
There's a
when we're
lot to
done
discuss.
recording.
Okay, so this might be counterintuitive. The highlight for me was the ending where it was the Final Destination-esque death of the guy.
Yeah,
just
it's
like,
a lot.
but I think that really elevated the episode. Like, I imagine if that wasn't there, or if the guy, I don't know, was just like a regular guy or something, I don't know, but like it gets dropped, it would have been whatever as an episode. I think the fact that he dies in that manner in a way that Dean can't explain that seems so crazy, like, I was like, this works so well for the episode. I think it really turned it into something great. And then as a low light, I think, is kind of right after that, and also I guess, like, threading through the entire episode is Sam's increasing belief that there's something so wrong with him that he has to be redeemed by a higher power. That I'm like, oh no, that made me so sad. So that was my low light.
Vail, how about you?
That's a really good highlight you chose. I would have to go with something similar. I actually really liked for my highlight end scene where, you know, Sam is getting, like, so upset that there might not be, like, this higher order of good in the world, and then Dean, who's constantly, like, the cynic for all of time and, like, for all of their hunts, who's, constantly, like, this guy's probably bad, you know, we can't save the monster, blah, 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 is kind of like, I don't know what I think anymore. Like, I've kind of been swayed closer to the other side. So that was, like, really touching for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, just very touching to see how both of Jared and Jensen played that. And then the low light would probably be, like, just the beginning of the episode. Like, when they're digging up the body, that felt really random to me. Just, like, going into some guy's backyard, finding that his cellar door is open, and then just, like, I don't know. All of that just seems so random. I was like,
what are we doing?
How did this connect again? Yeah.
Like, they should have done a better job of integrating it, you think?
Yeah, like, I get where they were going with Sam, like, pausing to think and then being like, maybe
It's
she was
pretty
literal
extreme.
about the foundations, but that's usually, it's the other way around. Like, they find it and then they're like, oh, there was a pun happening. So, it felt a little disjointed for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Meredith.
Low light, it made me kind of uncomfortable when Dean was making fun of religion and, like, religious people. And it was very in character, and I'm not faulting them for including it, but at the same time, it just made me a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think given what Dean's been through in his life, like, it makes sense for his character, like, to feel that way. But yeah, I can see why it's, like, a little bit uncomfy if that's something you actually, like, believe in and care about.
Highlight, I think I'm gonna go with Father Reynolds again, like him talking to Father Gregory.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Again, it was a very emotional scene. It was like,
those were great scenes.
Yeah, it was the climax of the episode. And yeah, I feel like there was a lot in this episode about, like, missions from God and just purpose.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a theme throughout the show too, but it's touched on in a, I don't know, like a slightly different way in this episode, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
This episode came to a really good climax. The way they did it, like you said, it hit different.
It wasn't really an action-filled episode.
Yeah.
It was more about like emotions and ideology.
There were some deep emotional and like story, like narrative things happening.
Yeah, and I don't know, that whole, I didn't really think about it until Jenn pointed it out, but like that whole act of God way that guy died just made me think about like how a lot of the time in the scriptures, if God calls you to do something and you refuse, you have the option of refusing, and he'll just get someone else to do it.
Yeah, and in this case, he kind of did it himself.
Yeah, like it's not the best way to show that, but it just reminded me of that.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, but that's really cool because I didn't think of that in turn, so I like that you brought that up.
My low light. Does anyone want to guess my low light?
Dean calling her a hooker?
Yeah,